Welcome back to the Bet on Her podcast with Gina, Kelly, and myself, Dana. Today we have Julia Scoles.
Thank you.
Nice. We're pumped.
I'm pumped. I'm honored to be here with you guys.
We're happy to have you here.
Yeah, big fan.
So I guess for some background for listeners that don't know Julia plays professional beach volleyball. She's on the ABB tour. She's making an Olympic run internationally to represent the USA. And kind of recently, a couple weeks ago, you are now going to be on the pier, the Manhattan Beach Pier, winning the Manhattan Beach Open.
Pew, pew, pew.
Yes,
that's so exciting.
It's super exciting. I mean, like, how do you feel after that?
Honestly, I haven't thought about it like too much after the fact, but the day itself was really cool. Just family and friends, and a kind of crazy tournament day with all the rain and the back-to-back games. So
yeah, that was a bizarre tournament.
Yeah, it was fun to shoot though. A lot of the rain shots and stuff. It was really cool.
Hurricane Hillary, really.
I mean, was it really a hurricane?
Maybe.
Debatable.
We really don't know.
Debatable.
For Southern California, it was.
But yeah, I mean, you've had such a cool season. I mean, granted, we played last year, which was such an amazing season as well. It's played together. I guess I really want to get into, because I feel like a lot of people are curious about this too, but like your mindset, because you are like an exception to so many things in so many ways. And let me explain myself. It's okay. Like the adversity and the challenges that you've like had to overcome these past 2 years is more than a lot of athletes have to deal with in terms of like injuries, etc. Like how do you turn these, my biggest question is like, how do you turn these challenges of adversity into opportunities?
That's a really good question. And I feel like there are a lot of layers to that. I think ultimately it comes back to my faith, and that really strengthens me and gives me perspective on life is so much more than sport. And I use sport as kind of a vehicle for just so many different things with relationships. And I feel like it exposes a lot of parts of me that I like pride, ego, anger, all these things that lie underneath the surface I'm confronted with on a daily basis. And it's kind of how do you go from there and kind of use your sport as a tool to help shape you into a better person. And then ultimately through all the challenges that you face, there's always silver linings. And I remember you sent me the video in New Orleans where it was like a video about all these things that could go wrong. And that response was good. It's like you can't change what's happening, but you can change your mindset and your approach on how you're dealing with it. And I'm definitely not perfect by any means. Like I have really tough days, and but I also understand bigger picture, and this is temporary, what we're going through. And so, yeah,
I love that.
That's a great answer.
I know. You should write that in a book. That's pretty good. But I want to go towards, so that's kind of like overarching, right? But like, I want to get into Montreal, the event where I would like, let's walk through, like, okay, I want to walk through this event.
Cut to her facial expression.
I know, insert
right
clip. Yep, insert clip now. Yeah, I had no idea that Court 2 had the Zoom feature for the cameras.
So, okay, for listeners that don't know, Julia got a silver in Montreal, which is it was the elite event, one of the top events for international beach volleyball. And so, okay, when did the injury or like something first happen? Was that in the quarters, or was it your last match of pool play? And kind of walk us through everything that happened, and then kind of like because obviously you overcame like when there's a will, there's a way. Like that's what I like to say about you.
I mean, you came back and you beat the #1 team in the world.
That was a miracle. Yeah, but so I actually am dealing with a chronic injury called patellar tendinosis, and there's some layers to that. Basically, I'm managing my load like throughout the year and trying to mitigate flare-ups. And we had been going for 4 weekends straight, and we had to be in the qualifier for 2 of the 4 events. So we're playing like pretty absurd amount of games back to back to back. And I feel like I kind of reached a breaking point in Montreal. And I wanted to quit probably it was Friday. I was in a lot of pain. And then Saturday, I like was FaceTiming my boyfriend, like crying, like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm in so much pain. I can't. And then Betsy and I are walking to the court. We're going to play Australia. And like, I'm just kind of in like a bad mood. I'm like in a lot of pain. And a bird poops on my foot. And we look at each other and we just start like laughing. And Betsy's like, we needed that. And so I like that kind of turned the mood around a little from just like frustration and being upset to like, okay, how are we going to get through this game? And she was like, we get through this one game and you can quit after this. And so that's honestly a lot of my approach to like workouts and also volleyball. So I was like, okay, I get through this one game, like I don't have to play anymore. And then we get through that game. And I'm like, okay, like I'm like kind of surprised we won. Like it was a really tough team. And I was like, all right, like I can just start the next game. And like, if it's that bad, like I can stop like midway. And same thing, like that was the miracle game. I would say we came back from, I think the score was like 12-5 in the third at one point, and then 14-9. And then like the whole game, I was just like really just like in a mindset where I was like not really talking to Betsy. Like I wasn't talking to the refs or the other team. I was just like, get through each point. And there was one time that I like hit a ball and I landed pretty hard and I just like burst in tears. And I was back at the service line, like crying. And the ref's like, are you okay? Like, do you need, I'm like, blow the whistle. Do it now. I'm like, blow the whistle. Because if I stop, like, I'm going to stop. And I think it honestly like confused them. They were like, is she okay? Like, what's happening? And then I'm pretty sure like they were serving me. And then out of like grace, I think they started to serve Betsy because they're like, we don't want to like continue to target this girl who's like crying. And yeah, so we got through that game and continued to play. And
did you feel kind of in flow state in that moment?
No, I was very much like so structurally my tendons are fine, but just the change of tissue and the amount of inflammation just caused them to be extremely painful. So I was just very aware of the pain like the whole time.
I saw you during a timeout. I think it was during a timeout. You were rubbing all of this gel or cream on your knees.
I see.
Yeah. And then you get on the court and you're diving all over the place, and it's just like sand knee pads. Yeah. Because of all the stuff that got stuck to it.
That's so funny because one of the plays I like dove and my knee hit and the sand kind of made it raw a little. And then I put the icy hot on. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Like it was going straight to your blood.
I was like, they should sell like sandpaper and like icy hot for the ultimate like. Sorry, that sounds a little crazy. But yeah.
That's a secret.
Like, yeah,
I guess that's a secret.
The little secrets of Julia Scoles. Yeah. Sandpaper. Icy hot.
Well, I commend you for everything that you've accomplished given the pain that you're dealing with. So what about like I also want to ask about like how you've managed different climates this year, because well, okay, I'll just do I'll tell the story. Okay.
Are we doing it?
We're telling the story.
We're doing it.
So,
yes.
So last year when Julia and I we were playing.
So
if you want,
not my brightest moment.
Were you the one who showed me that clip?
It was badass. What? I have the clip.
Yeah,
you showed it to me, right?
So this is what I'm talking about in the sense of like Julia. Like we're playing in Fort Lauderdale last year in the ABP, and we had to play 3. We're in the contenders bracket where we thrive.
Yeah, we thrive.
And we're Sunday, we had to play the quarters, semis, and finals. And mind you, in Fort Lauderdale at the time, it was like 90, high 90s, even 100 with the heat index, like 20-mile-per-hour winds. And we won our first match. It's starting to get hotter. We win our second match. After our second match, you're like, I'm not feeling great. And I'm like, okay, let's go in the AC. Like, let's cool down, But like, they only gave us like an hour break in between those 3 matches, which is just crazy to think in that type of climate. And then we're playing in the finals, and Julia seems fine. And then in the middle of the second set, it was like the tech, or they called an early timeout or something. And I just see her in the box, and she's just sitting there. And all of a sudden, the camera, mind you, is like right in her face, just projectile vomits. And like Nancy, our coach, was with us at the time. She starts just covering the sand over the vomit, and she's like telling the cameraman, like, get your camera out of our box, like get out. And anyway, like what I'm saying is, like, we went to 3. We actually, that was a really close match, but like I was like, should we call medical? Are you okay? Da da da. And you're like, I'm fine. And just like your willpower. And we were like, also it was the fact that you were still going back and ripping jump serves. Like, it's so mind blowing to me, just your willpower in those moments. And like, despite everything, obviously, like after the match, like you went and had to be carried into the cold tub and completely submerged because your body was overheating, yada, yada. Like, but it's, it's just, you're an exception, and I just commend you wholeheartedly.
Yeah. You like flip a switch almost.
Yeah.
And like, it's like a different mental state, I think. Because I've seen it, like you described it. You've seen it firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it in Arizona when you two played championships last year. And then every single other tournament that I've seen you, but like most recently Montreal. You were just... Because I was there next to you when you were... It was a timeout, and I was photographing. And you just sat in a chair, just like so still. And you're just staring straight ahead. And as soon as the referee, and everyone knew you were in pain, as soon as the referee blew the whistle, you just like got up and went straight to work. You basically just had like, not to say that's a bad thing. It's no, like, I want to know like how do you get to that point? Like what do you say to yourself, if anything, to get yourself to keep going?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm not really thinking about it when it's happening, but I know you're a big believer in staying present and like being in the moment. And so I think genuinely being in the moment and taking it one breath, one step, one play at a time, and seeing where that builds, and not really thinking about what's after this. But with the Fort Lauderdale thing, heat injuries are very serious, people.
Yes.
Yeah.
But,
it was heat exhaustion, right?
Yeah, I think so.
But I was not super aware of that. This is my own ignorance. And a few nights before, Haley, Tina, and I were at a dinner, and Haley was talking about how like she threw up in a game or something, but I think it was because she had an upset stomach. But she's like, but then I was like ready to go after that. And then Tina's like, yeah, like when you throw up, like you get rid of it and you're like on another level. So then when we're in this game, I'm like, I threw up, and I'm like, okay, like I'm ready to go.
You were mentally
I was literally
prepared.
thinking about that conversation on like how like Tina, like 4th place at the Olympics, is like, yeah, like you throw up, you're ready to go. And then I don't really know why I was not float serving. I remember us like switching sides, and you were like, this way, Julia.
Yeah, she was a little lost on which, a little, but
so I didn't really think about it.
And like, look, for me, like I wish I would have forced us to take a medical at that time as well. Not that it might have just prolonged the inevitable, but like looking back, I apologize for not having.
Oh, it is okay. Yeah, it is fine.
So then I guess this year, how have you been able to manage heat when you've had to play in it, or what have you done to help prevent that for getting to that point?
So I feel like we have not been playing in any kind of climate close to what it was like in Fort Lauderdale. And because of Montreal and the state my knees were in, I skipped Atlanta, which was the other like very hot tournament. And so I haven't really been doing much outside of like, I'm really vigilant on bringing electrolytes, making sure I'm hydrated. Also, Eric, Mr. Iceman, he helped me the following weekend in Atlanta, like cool down in between sets. So I'm constantly aware of like places on my body that are cooling. And so I just kind of try to make sure I'm covering all those bases.
That's good.
It's good that you skipped Atlanta. It was hot.
Yeah, it was really hot.
Yeah, watching like people had like ice bags on their heads, and it just looked very intense. And it was a good volleyball, but I was like, yeah, that's pretty
break.
brutal.
Yeah, break is important too. Then I guess like, so because of these injuries, what have you, how have you changed your training? Because I know you've started to do Pilates with Lindsay Legrand, and wanted to give her a little shout out. But like, so how have you kind of changed your off court to help your body for season?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I feel like this whole year, there's not been any true consistency, because when you're traveling and you're on the road, like every week looks different. And then when you're home and you have a block of time, you're focused on something different than maybe you were the month before. And so I think at the beginning of the year, I was kind of going, and like thinking what I was doing was kind of helping my knees and rehab. But ultimately, like I think I had too much load. And so now I'm very mindful in like load management and what I think is not working my hardest. Like I have to understand that sometimes like what is best is not giving your best. And so I have really like limited jumps at practice. Like before Manhattan, I did one with you guys, one practice, like full go. And then same thing for Chicago. I did like one practice full go, and then everything else was like on the ground, technical, in the gym, doing eccentrics, iso holds, just all the stuff that stimulates the tendon for regeneration and growth. But yeah, and also something that's been super impactful is zone 2 training, which you have 2 aerobic systems, anaerobic and aerobic. And I operate at like a high intensity. So like the system that needs that is good. But then the system that's like the baseline system is I have trouble coming down from those energy bursts. And so like the first part of season, I was like hyperventilating pretty much like every game. And I wasn't understanding because I'm like, I feel like I'm in good shape. Like, why can I not catch my breath? And so I've been doing zone 2 training, which is basically like you put a heart rate monitor on and you're at a conversational level cardio, and you do it for 45 minutes, 3 times a week. David Lee, he's helped me with that. And so I've been trying to do that consistently, and I've definitely feel better in games, able to, just sustain longer durations of effort than having my cardiovascular system not uphold to the demand that I put on it.
I see Kelly taking notes.
Oh yeah, I wrote down zone 2 training. I want to look into it. That's
I probably did not use all the correct scientific terminology, but yeah.
How long have you been doing zone 2?
Probably since April.
And who introduced you to that training? Was it David Lee or?
Yeah.
Okay. David Lee. Shout out David
and
Lee.
The USAV athletic training staff.
Do you think more athletes at the high level are using this type of training?
Yes. David Lee said that Alex Kleiman did it whenever she was prepping for Tokyo, and it really helped her. And she had like a similar problem that I do. So,
and is there a way to like go about testing it, or is it just something that you kind of hear some symptoms and you're like, oh yeah, that feels like me?
I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, I just kind of expressed like this is a really big pain point. Like, how can I be in shape without also like just doing a bunch of sprints or running? Because I'm like, I want to up my cardio and get in better shape, but I don't want to add load to my knees.
Right.
So, can we talk a little bit about Pilates?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There was a photo that I took of Julia. Do you remember this photo?
Oh yes.
When she was getting up, she had crossed her legs. It was just a burst of photos, and you had crossed your legs, kind of interesting. And I was like, wow, I've never seen anybody get up that way. It must have been the Pilates you've been doing. So how has Pilates helped you during this time?
Yeah, Lindsay has been incredible. When I was first trying to figure out just how I was going to approach training, April, she suggested to do Pilates because I'm kind of hypermobile, and I was originally like, oh, let me do yoga. And she's like, no, like, I don't think that would be as useful for you. And then I remembered your Pilates videos. So I reached out to Gina, and I was like, Gina, like, do you have a place that you recommend? Like, I go for Pilates. And so then she connected me with Lindsay, and then I called her on the phone, and Lindsay had a history of patellar tendinosis as well when she did water polo in college. And I just kind of expressed to her like what I was going through, and she's like, oh yeah, I definitely think I can help you. And so that's been such an awesome thing to do, because I think it's one of the only workouts that I feel like when I leave, I have more energy and I'm like, am lighter, more refreshed than coming in, where other workouts, I just am like, I feel pretty drained afterwards. And I don't think she pushes me as hard as like, cause it's supposed to be like kind of a recovery, stretching, like, smaller strength, exercises. But yeah, it's been awesome, just to kind of change the pace of traditional workouts and find something that works for my body. And doing workouts on the reformer takes the load and the weight of your body off while still being able to target those muscle groups. So you're doing like squats laying down, and it's like zero gravity kind of, because you don't feel just the weight on your
And
back.
it's a great core workout too.
Oh yeah.
Kelly
core.
recently tried it for the first time, the reformer.
Yeah. I almost fell off, and they had to bring me the pole, like to
hold on to
little
it.
like cane. I was like,
Yeah.
but it was I definitely want to get into it more, and obviously having you share your story of Pilates, I think a lot of volleyball athletes will probably make that shift into it, and I feel like it definitely correlates to the movements on the sand as well. Have you seen that as a benefit, Pilates from this into the sand?
That's a good question. I think like it's hard to see a direct correlation, but I can't hurt it for sure. And I definitely feel like it's a way for my body to still work without working too hard. And so I love the balance of like stretching, strength, and mobility, and it's all kind of combined, and as well as like stability, because a lot of the moves you're engaging everything, all your whole body.
What about you, G?
Yeah, I mean, I love Pilates. I think that it's really important for athletes to diversify sometimes, because to do everything over and over, the monotony can also be kind of mentally taxing. So it's nice to mix it up and just, and I just think it's great to like strengthen all of these small muscles that you didn't even know you had when you're doing it. So especially for me, which I have a really hard time at targeting my glutes working out, and Pilates finds a way to work my ass like crazy. So it's good because I got a flat butt.
How do you know what your limits are when you put yourselves through that pain in those matches? Like, do you know what your limits are?
That's a good question. I feel like if it's debilitating, that's the limit. And also, I feel like I have learned my body and understanding like what pain is, like not good pain, but like not detrimental. I think that, yeah, I knew that I was, because when we were in Montreal, Betsy's like just focus on this tournament and then you can take however much time, like you have a lot of time to rest. And so I was like, okay, like I don't have a serious injury. It's not like I tore my ACL or tore my meniscus, and it's something that I've been battling with. I knew it was a big flare up from just playing 4 consecutive weekends. So I was like, reasonably, this is safe to play with. And I was also in contact with all my medical providers, and no one was like, you shouldn't play. So I feel like their expertise, like I trust in that. And then if I can deal with it, then I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah.
But if they're not saying like, oh no, like you playing is not going to do, or is going to do irreversible consequences, like obviously I'll stop. But if they're like, no, like you're fine, then I'm like, okay, if I'm in pain, I'm in pain.
Yeah. I just think it's important to talk about, because we want athletes or younger athletes to know, like, it's important to listen to your body. It's important to get help if you're feeling it, but then also like sometimes it's okay to push through the pain a little bit, if it's not going to be totally detrimental. So
yes,
I wanted like just to bring it up as like an educational thing and to share your experience, because it is unique, and it's important to talk about. But like, I guess in a more positive light, I wanted to ask a little bit about kind of like what you've learned from your new team, like from Betsy, April, John Mayer, because obviously that's a lot of experienced and well-versed people in the sport. And I just kind of wanted to get your take on what you've learned from that.
And kind of actually in a short period of time, right?
Yeah.
Since November.
Yeah, I feel like I've learned so much from each person, and it's hard to probably put into words or consolidate. But from Betsy, I think I've learned so much just about the cerebral side of volleyball and how to like mentally grind out tough matches, as well as like strategy on like, okay, we ran this, or like, oh, what is their tendency for this play, or just really coming at volleyball from like a chess match kind of perspective, rather than just worrying about your side or your side out. And then from April, like she is a well of information and experience, and she's been incredible. And I feel like every little thing she's told me, like I try to implement like right away. I'm just like a teacher's pet. I'm like, oh, did I do this right? And so from her, I think a lot of mindset, but also a lot of like technical, like with my pulling and my platform and serving mindset, like pretty much across the board. I'm just trying to get as much information as I can and just absorb it. And then John Mayer is like incredible in how he thinks outside the box and like his unconventional, you worked under him. So just his approach to the game and his calmness as well, because like obviously in beach volleyball, it's a high intensity competitive sport, but I also think there's power in holding a steady calmness throughout everything, which you do exceptionally well.
Thanks, Julie.
Yes, you do. So yeah, I think that balance of like intensity, calmness, and then thinking about things in an unconventional way. Like he's like, close one eye while you're passing, and I'm like, all right, I'll do it. But yeah, he has a really cool view of the game, and it's been cool to learn.
What about so like now that's the team. What about the team behind the team, like your support system? Shout out Ginny.
Shout out
and
Ginny.
Mike and Drew. Like you've had your parents come to a lot of tournaments and support you. Drew's been at a lot of tournaments. He's been your warm-up coach.
Yeah,
at
we
a couple
call him
tournaments.
Coach Drew.
He was in Stad, right?
Yeah, he came to Stad. So he had a wedding that same weekend, or yeah, the same weekend of Stad. So he had to be in Europe anyways, and then also a work trip in Spain right after. So it worked out perfectly where he was able to come a few days early and warm us up. And it was hilarious because there was one practice where we didn't tell the other coach that he wasn't our coach. And we're like, we just want to see how he interacts with them. And the coach like goes up, like shakes his hand, and it's like, what do you think we should do with the girls? Like, what kind of drills do you want to run them through? And we were like, Drew, you have to like play it off. He's like, well, like I think like we should let them decide. And then we just like started laughing. But like the coach really thought he was our coach, so it was pretty funny.
That's funny. But I mean, I'm sure it's nice to have them there a lot of the time.
Oh yeah, like I think like relationships are the most important part of life, and I'm like very blessed and grateful for the people in my life. And I think more so like when I first went to University of Hawaii, I knew like one other person, and so that was like a very lonely and isolating time in my life. The second year I had like a lot of great relationships, but it was like my whole world was changed. And I think it gives me such a greater appreciation for community and for relationships now. But
yeah, it's cool because I think too the unique relationship that you have with Haley Harward, who's your best friend, your roommate.
yes,
Like I actually want to talk a little bit about kind of the different dynamic I feel like that's shifting. I mean, Kelly and I have talked about this, about how on the AVP, right? Like when we were first coming out, like everyone's a competitor. Everyone's like, I want to beat this person. I want to beat this person. And now with this influx of college players coming into the scene, it's a different, unique experience because you guys were a part of a team together where, yes, you were competitors at USC, but you were ultimately on the same team trying to make each other better because your overall goal was to win as a team. But now you're here on the AVP where obviously you're playing for yourself and your partner, but yet you see some of these college girls come out and like cheering for their old teammates. And it's interesting. So I kind of just wanted to hear your take on like the different dynamic and how you guys are able to balance such a unique relationship.
Do you go home to her and say, sorry, not sorry, after you win?
What's dinner like?
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
table?
No,
Like, spill the tea.
yeah, so that's a really good question because I think that it's easy to play someone that you don't know. And it's really challenging to play someone you know, because like I love Haley and I'm like, I want you to win, but it's like, but I also want to win. So it's just a challenging dynamic. I think we've talked about it before of like when you step on the court, like regardless of who's on the other side of the net, like you view them as faceless, you know, and it's like very tough to play your friends, but like this is the sport we play. And so you're going to play your friends at some point, especially internationally, like becoming friends with some of the girls. I'm like, oh, I hope we don't play them, but it's like, that's part of the sport. And part of the sport, the beauty of the sport is how it brings people together, and like it can divide people, but more so I think it brings people together. So we share a love for the game. Like we share a love for friendships. We have perspective is that like wins and losses, like don't define you. And like, there's such a bigger picture to life. And those relationships are really what carry you through. And so I am so blessed to have Haley in my life as one of my best friends and my roommate. And yeah, it's really cool because when like I'm out of a tournament, I'm like, go Haley. And when she's out of a tournament, she's cheering for me. And that's something that I feel like it makes the culture like more of like a family. And
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm rooting for Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm not playing.
Always rooting for Gina. And then when we play each other, we're gunning for each other's
Faceless.
heads.
Yeah.
We're faceless.
Yeah.
It's like, who can facial someone first?
Well, I got facial this
how is
weekend.
that?
It's okay. They super glued it. It's a little gash, but you know, it's just be a scar.
Blenders, I think, needs to make a better pair for you.
Yeah, like a cushiony pair, you get blasted, it just kind of like
Feels like a pillow.
Yeah.
You can wear a face shield.
One of
Goggles.
those like classic things. Yeah. Oh man. Well, I think that's really cool that you guys have that unique relationship and you're able to set that all aside and come together and eat dinner at the same table.
Yeah.
What was dinner like after Manhattan Beach?
I
the
think
house?
she was with her family for dinner. But I remember in Fort Lauderdale when she beat us in the finals, I went to dinner with her that night and I was like, dude, you're AVP champion. Like, I want to take you to dinner.
That's so
awesome.
sweet. Yeah.
We have a very mature friendship, it seems like. So with Haley, our word.
We're immature though. All of our humor is like, we're like children, but yeah, I think we can separate friendship and play ball.
Yeah. What about off the court stuff? Like what is an off day for Julia look like? A little balance in life, you know?
Yeah, that's a good question because I feel like there's not been so much balance the past few months. But whenever I have a chance to kind of slow down, I enjoy like going to a coffee shop, like reading the word, biking along the Strand, like watching the sunset. I love just spending time with friends and family, with my church community. Yeah.
I really want you to explain to everyone what your coffee is because you love coffee so much and your unique coffee. You're telling me like, because I know you tell me about like you like to make with your new machine you got, and like give us the breakdown of.
That's hilarious. I feel like even though I enjoy coffee, like people who actually know like the quality of the beans and like all this information about coffee and are coffee connoisseurs per se, I'm just like, I enjoy coffee, but I have no idea if this is like a great bean or not. But yeah, I got an espresso machine and I enjoy it. It's one of my favorite parts of the morning. And then I do some like almond milk, maybe a little stevia droplets, cocoa powder, collagen peptides.
See, little bits, lots of steps.
Oh,
Gotta get those tendons right.
don't you put lavender in your coffee too?
No, I haven't.
Okay, scratch
But
that.
I might. That's a good idea.
Sounds pretty good.
Anything else?
No, I feel like, I mean, your willpower is your strength. And it's just so inspiring to watch you do your thing and you just go into this other gear. And I mean, you've blossomed into this amazing young athlete pursuing this amazing dream, the Olympic path. So it's been fun to watch, and you can tap into that extra zone or whatever you want to call it. But it's when you tap in, it's pretty scary what you can do.
That's
So,
very kind. I've not
yeah.
even thought about this.
Yeah. Well, it's a strength of yours, and
For
it's just
sure.
sometimes it's like less is more, and it seems like when you get into that zone, or people talk about the flow state, it's like you're a whole nother human. It's your superpower. It's cool. It's cool. I'm
She's
giving
like,
you a
"What?"
compliment. It's good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you were rookie of the year last year, weren't you?
Yep.
And now you have your name on the pier.
And now you have your name. I mean, look at that.
Yeah.
Like rookie of the year to name on the pier, like in one season.
That should be a jingle.
Yeah.
Rookie of the year to name on the pier.
We're dropping lyrics.
So funny.
We should get Eric to put a beat
That's
together.
perfect. Rookie of the year, name on the pier. Wake up.
Oh my God.
All right, that's pretty good.
So I guess the last bit here is how do you take a bet on yourself, or how have you taken a bet on yourself?
I think that whenever I first switched to beach, I'd never played before. I was coming off of a serious injury of concussions, and I just felt like deep within that I was supposed to transfer and pursue beach volleyball. And God opened a lot of doors for me to do that. And I was very, very fearful, but I was like, I'm not going to let fear determine the course of action I take. And so despite all the fear that I felt, I was like, I'm still going to go for it.
Yeah.
And so
Glad you
moved
did.
halfway across the world and lived on a rock for a little bit. And now I'm here.
Yeah. Amazing.
great.
The last one here is if there's anything on your heart or mind that you want to share with us here in the room or with our listeners, the mic is yours.
What's on my heart is just how awesome you guys are and just what you're doing for this community. It's something so special, and I'm so grateful to be a very, very small part. But it's seriously been, just like to see our sport grow the way it's grown in the past year is a lot because of you guys, and you're setting that example for future generations, and just giving direction and giving people voices in sport and bringing how sport brings people together. You're bringing people together even more. And so I am so grateful for you guys, and that I know you, and that I can just watch you guys do your thing.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
coming.
Julia.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you knew about this coming from our very first conversation.
Yeah, when we went to Verve,
Yes.
you're like, this is my vision. I'm like, girl, do it. And
How
here
long
you
ago
are.
was that? That
was last year, right after Arizona.
Yeah.
There you go. Almost a year exactly ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I want to bring this community together. And
Yeah.
it was me, Julia, and Haley.
Yeah.
And that was like the first time we've ever met after sending you photos.
Look at us now.
Look at us now.
Creating a buzz.
Yeah. I love that. Actually, I was thinking about changing the media name to something else. We'll see.
No.
I think I might.
I love it.
Buzzle Media.
I
It's
love
creating
Buzzle.
buzz
It's-
around the athlete.
Yeah.
So it's Buzzle.
I
That's
love
the
it.
whole point
Yeah.
of it. But I might change it.
Interesting.
That's what I do on my off time. I like
brainstorm.
go into like a deep hole and like don't come out.
I still vibe with Buzzle. So
Super
OG.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. And this is the Bit on Her podcast.
And cut.